Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Abington School Committee on Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, here's me and you.
Thank you. First order of business, we're going to open up a public budget hearing, presentation and public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 preliminary budget proposal. So we're entering the public hearing at this time.
So what I have for you tonight is a PowerPoint presentation that's on a piece of paper. And everyone should have a copy of it. The administrative team has seen it, the information in it several times, but there should be additional copies up there at the door if people would like a full copy. It includes our budget documents also, though, our budget book, and the PowerPoint slides.
Is it available online?
And it is available online, Teresa, or will be? It will be. The PowerPoint? The budget books are online.
Yes, well, it'll be online, the PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint will go online tomorrow morning. So this is the FY 2020 preliminary budget proposal for the Abington Public Schools. And I'm not going to read the slides to you that you have, but I want to talk a little bit about each of the slides. The total budget proposal is for a $24,373,279 budget, operational budget, to secure the resources we need to provide the best education possible for the students in Abington to support their learning needs. I want to spend a little bit of time about explaining the process to the group, though. So when we come back to school in the fall, the budget process really begins. There are meetings in schools that take place, inventorying takes place, curriculum materials are reviewed, school councils meet, principals meet, teachers meet, and they start to collect the wish list. And then that wish list ends up in Felicia's office just prior to the Thanksgiving break. Then we meet, we have about 20 meetings with each of the directors, department heads, and principals going through all of the proposals. And then we also meet with the Budget and Finance Subcommittee. We met with Chris and Lisa over the winter break. And the budget process will continue on. Right now, we don't have any idea what the federal, the state, or the local forecast is for the school department for the town of Abington. And so we will have a better picture of what funds will be available to support our school system by the time the town meeting comes in May or June. So what I'm giving you tonight is really a snapshot in time of all of that work that I described earlier to this date. These are estimates based on what we know now. As we head to town meeting, these estimates and these pictures will get clearer and clearer. At the same time, the amount of funds available to support education in Abington will get clearer and clearer. And then hopefully those two numbers meet when we go to town meeting, and then the town votes one number, the number that the school committee submits for consideration at the annual town meeting. And so this budget packet that you have is based on a couple of things that we know going into this budget cycle. The cost of fixed and mandated items like our contractual agreements and special education will automatically require our budget to go up. Our contractual agreements and the cost of special education each year increase. Also, the amount of resources required for education is substantially more than it used to be. Now we're talking about workbooks, supportive materials in classrooms, books and software, and the hardware that it takes to provide a competitive education. And then also we're looking at an increase in population size that we've seen over the last couple of years, in the last 3 years, and we anticipate will continue at least for the next 2 years. And then after that, it's unclear as to how much it will increase based on the housing starts in Abington. We know, for example, that we've got 2 more small classes leaving Abington High School, and we can anticipate that the incoming classes are going to provide, at least at Abington High School, 30 to 40 more students per year over the next 2 years for high school. So the next slide in your packet shows our priorities in terms of positions that we're looking to propose. And again, this is a preliminary proposal. First, to meet the numbers that are projected, the actual numbers that are projected at Abington High School, we're looking to add a .4 English position. If we don't add this position, we could have English classes, or we will have English classes at the high school that exceed 30 per class. Hand in hand is meeting the schedule needs for the special education population. So the next 2 positions, there's a special education tutor and a special education teacher to provide service for those students with IEPs, 504s who have special needs at the high school. So as your population at the high school goes up, the challenges in the schedule in terms of meeting all of the needs of your special education population also goes up, because they go to so many different classes. And in order to have the inclusive and the co-taught classes that we want to have at our high school, we need to increase our special education support. So at this time, I will tell you, and I want to give you the heads up, that in a couple of months you may come back and this might be 2 special education teachers, or it might be 2 paraprofessionals and a special education teacher. I just want to, out of a sense of diligence and being specific about our needs, we want to wait until the actual scheduling occurs so we know exactly what we're going to need. But we know we're going to need some support in that area. In this room, in the high school, in the middle school library, we're looking to add a .5 tutor for 2 reasons. In order to better support the one-to-one initiative, this room has taken on quite a bit of the technical support and the aspects for students who have lost a computer, or a computer isn't functioning appropriately. This is the place where that initial triage takes place. They're given a replacement computer. And it's been burdensome on this library. In order to provide the type of library setting and feel we want this library to have, it needs that additional support. Also, we have a high school and a middle school that operate at different times, so there's an expanded amount of time that this library needs to stay open in order to serve both populations. And this person will also help extend the hours that the library can be that centerpiece for education that we want it to be. We've invested quite a bit of money in this room as a resource, and so we want to make sure that we keep it staffed appropriately so that we can maximize that investment. The next position that we have is an Abington High School, Middle School Adjustment Counselor. We've been talking quite a bit about the social-emotional piece and the needs of our students in the Abington Public Schools. The need in adolescence is, I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the effect of adolescence on kids, and I don't need to spend a lot of time talking about the challenges that our society and families are presented with in these times, and the support that these students need. The actual division on how that would work would be based on information and data from our student support teams in terms of where the best use of this person's time will be, whether it's 50-50 or 60-40, and how they would spend their time. We'd use those groups of professionals to inform that decision. Continuing on the next slide, we also want to look to add a teacher, 1 teacher pre-K to 6. We have a couple of grades that we're watching their numbers. We want to make sure that we provide the lowest class size possible. If those grades see substantial increases or some increases, we'd be worried that they would breach a number where it would be unacceptable to us that we would have that number of students in a classroom. We want to support that by adding a teacher. And even if we don't breach, let's say, a magic number, a lot of people think of the number 30 or 29 or whatever that number might be, we want to continue to reduce our class sizes at our elementary level, at all levels, but particular attention to the elementary level and serving the youngest students with the lowest size classes possible. Had it our way, we'd add 6 elementary teachers, one for each of the grades. But we know that that's not going to happen, so we're not even going to ask at this point. We do want to chip away at it and start with 1. Abington Middle School wellness teacher. This would reduce the class sizes in our health classes. The reason that that's important to us is we talk about Tier 1 support of social emotional needs. That's the level that all students receive. A lot of work is done through our health classes in supporting the social emotional needs of our students and talking about the topics that they talk about, and the social behaviors and building resiliency around the challenges of society. A lot of those conversations happen in health classes. And so the smallest class sizes possible supports the most number of students in the Abington Public Schools. It maximizes that. And then an elementary music teacher, a .3. The reason that we'd want to add that is we're looking at a new program delivery for elementary music. We are looking to eliminate the tutors in grades 5, 6 and have a music teacher provide that instruction. We would still have the music teachers in grade 4, that's the instrumental piece. Adding this coupled with that, we believe would potentially increase, once we complete the schedule, would increase the music experience for the elementary students by 5 minutes at each grade level. So that's an addition of 5.8 teachers. And I could go on and on and on about the number of positions I'd want to add in the Abington Public Schools. But we know that we're not going to be able to fill the full-time equivalency of 5.8 positions. So this is close to what we feel today's priorities are in terms of the order. There could be some adjustments as we get closer to the town meeting. And these are the positions that I wanted to talk about tonight. I want to dive deeper into the budget process and document with you, and I'm certainly going to answer people's questions as they have them. But does the committee have questions about the positions, or do people have questions about the positions at this point?
I have a question. Are you saying the priorities range from .4 English teacher down to .3 music teacher in order of priority?
As a tentative priority, yes.
Okay. So can maybe you just talk a little bit more about, I guess I didn't realize that when I was looking at this the first time. So the school adjustment counselor split, and then the pre-K through 6 teacher for class size reduction.
Yep.
Maybe talk a little bit about your thinking there. I know that's a tough, you need both, but or if anybody from the high school, the middle school wants to jump in about the necessity or how that position would be used. Anything anybody wants to add?
So we know we need to do more work around building supports for our students and the social emotional piece. We also know that we're worried about the numbers. So I'd want to track the numbers for the next 3-4 months, and if we get a bloom in one particular grade level, that could move. That order could change. But I also know that our kids are needy. All of our kids are needy, but especially at the secondary level, in terms of they're impacted by trauma, anxiety, depression, and emotional health.
Thanks.
Okay. So before I go to the increase by major category page, I just want to talk about the budget book. I want to just highlight what's in it. I promise I'm not going to go page by page through the budget book, but we can answer questions that people might have. So there's the preliminary overview that I have. There's also the budget development planning schedule. There's a budget history here. There's student enrollment data. and an overview of our class sizes, if people are interested in that. There's a breakdown of staff across the system. There's a preliminary budget proposal by accounts, so you can see how the pie is disaggregated. There's the proposed increases by major category. There are the budget priorities in terms of staffing and textbooks. I talked a little bit about the staffing a moment ago. Then there's the preliminary budget document proposal. Those are the line items. As we talk about the major increase page, they feed off of those line items. Those increases are captured in that budget book, and you can see how that's broken down. How that's broken down. And then there are the articles for the annual town meeting warrant. I just wanted, the reason I tell you what's in there is because oftentimes there are questions, and this is readily available to people as a resource. And if there aren't questions, this is also the backup that provides the thinking and the rationale behind the overview that you're getting tonight. So I want to make sure I give that level of detail to people, but not dive too deeply into it beyond what people want to get into. So
I have a
Yeah.
question for him. On page 7,
Yep.
When we talk about increase by major categories, under athletics,
Yep.
we talk about the additional programs, boys, girls, winter track, and fitness coach, to be offset by user fees. So is your anticipation that we would be able to hire both the girls' winter track, boys' girls' winter track, which is a combined, and a fitness coach for that amount? Boosters paid for the
Right.
winter track, and I think we donate close to $8,000 just for the track coach. So
right.
is that one or the other, or
So
what does that 10,000 represent, I guess? is the
that
question.
offset for user fees is already taken out of that. So it would take this money plus the user fees. That's the increase that we would see to our budget.
And hire both of them?
Correct. Winter, track, boys, girls,
And a fitness?
and a fitness center coach.
Thank you.
And I should, when I get into the major increase page, I was going to say it was the kindness and the generosity of the boosters that did pay for that. And by the way, it's important people to know that that track program provided an experience for 40 students. So we want to make sure that we offer those high interest activities that our students are going to participate in. So going to the budget, the major increase page in the PowerPoint presentation that people have. And if you've come in late, I apologize. There's a PowerPoint presentation. There's paper copies of it as you come in the door. So. So these are the major increases to that budget document. The first one is what I described, and that's the contractual obligations. $489,313 for our contractual obligations. We employ almost 300 people in the Abington Public Schools. New positions. The new positions that I described to you a moment ago are these positions at $283,591. Programs of other districts. The special education tuitions that we anticipate by the number of children that we have in seats or placements outside of the district, in anticipating where or how their placements could change over the next year, is $366,367. That number changes, to be quite honest with you, every day. If someone can move into the district, someone can move out of the district. Students need a less restrictive environment sometimes. Students need a more restrictive and more expensive environment at other times. So that number will change as we approach town meeting. Could go up or down. The circuit breaker offset at 65%. That offset is good news. That decreases our budget by $46,278, or it doesn't decrease it, it offsets it with circuit breaker reimbursement. Continuing on to other programs on the next page, boys and girls winter track and the fitness coach. So in an effort to, I talked a little bit about the boys and girls winter track experience that our students are getting. We want to continue to support that because we have so many students participating in it. But then also the fitness center coach would be the type of person who would be able to do some instructional pieces along with the safety and supervision piece to make sure that we maximize the use of the workout room that we have before you get to the gymnasium. Right now it's open through coaches and the athletic director being available, and there isn't a regular schedule for it. This would provide more stability for that, something that our students could plan around. Other school services, transportation, $21,905. That is a 2.5% increase. That we know what that is. Felicia was here a couple of months ago with that increase. Special education transportation is an estimate of $12,441 based on the experience that we've had over this year and previous years. And then the 5-year curriculum plan. We've added $220,050 to that account because of 2 reasons. One is we need to get into an ongoing and a renewal cycle for the laptops that the initiative we've started. And so there's an enablement here to purchase the laptops in the first cycle of renewal. The teachers have had their laptops for 2 years. It will be 3 years at the time this purchase was made. Those laptops are still good laptops. They would be used in the elementary school. We would still, which would increase the amount of technology available to our elementary schools, and we would get in our budget a line item that would help support and sustain the laptop initiative so that we'd be able to, down the road, continue with that cycle of replacing laptops, the oldest laptops, and because we don't want to get to a point 5 years down the road where all the laptops are 5 years old, the batteries don't hold a charge, and they're not what our students need. There are also curricular materials that we would purchase with that enablement, and if you total those, it comes to a total increase of 5.9%, or $1,357,687 for a total preliminary budget of $24,373,279. So that was an overview. I want to answer questions that people have, but I do want to make sure that people understand these are preliminary numbers that will change as we approach town meeting, but they are the best estimate of the numbers we have at this time as of January 8th.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody in the audience? Any committee members?
Yeah, how realistic is the 5.9% increase if you look at the averages over the last 5 years?
Could you just do me a favor? Could you just state your name and your address?
Paul Haggerty, 515 Summer Street.
Thank you. Want to answer one quick?
It's not going to happen. 5.9 won't happen. We did include the averages over the last 20 years. The high, 10 years, sorry. Is it 10 or 20? 10 years. You can see the high water mark was last year with the addition of kindergarten at 5%. And that was a $500,000 for kindergarten alone. It's page 3 in that budget document.
You had 5.3, what, 2013,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
14?
5.3 in 2013-14. That's the high water mark.
I can't do the math, but it looks like it averages around 3% or so, generally.
So this number will likely be reduced as we approach town meeting.
So, well, what's the thinking behind presenting a number that is unrealistic? Like, so what are we supposed to take from it as parents when you have new positions in there and you have the 5-year curriculum? Like, where are we supposed to understand where the impact's going to be? Is it going to be in the new positions? Is it going to be that $220,000?
It could come from anywhere. I mean, based on the needs that are the needs of the district at that time, what makes the most sense. The only things that are locked in are essentially the contractual obligations and the transportation, and special education to a point. That number can fluctuate too as we get closer and have better information as we get closer to the town meeting date.
But does the school committee tonight have an opinion on where the direction is? Is it, if it's not 5.9, like, what are we looking to increase? Is it positions? Is it books? Is it other curriculum items? Like, I'm just trying to understand. When I ask you, it's like, yeah, well, we know that's not going to be the number. It's like, so if we know that, why do we present it? Like, so what is the number? I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
I understand.
I'm just trying to understand. It's great to see new positions in the district, but it's like, what is, so what, something's going to get cut. What is the school committee's thinking right now about what the priority is?
Well, I think, oh, sorry. Or,
I was going to say, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm new to this, but you're going to come back to us where we're going to have that conversation about where this 5.9% is not going to work. And then the district has some decisions to make, which will be shared. And that, I'm not sure that, again, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure that tonight conversation this is just the very beginning.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there's meetings with town manager, finance committee that is ongoing to provide feedback, what makes sense, where are they thinking we need to come in at for their purpose. Last year we were able to get full day kindergarten as part of it. We put that as a preliminary, we didn't know how it was gonna go, but it was something we wanted to fight for, and in the course of discussions, it was something we were able to get. So to know what we would take out is tough to know right now. This is, I guess, a best case wish list would be the way to put it. I
I wouldn't call it a wish list, I would call it a need list.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
but
Needs for our district.
needs, but
I
not gonna
think
happen.
it also helps to know what's coming, even if not, having sat in the audience for a while now. Full day kindergarten was talked about for years before it came to fruition. So I think that to me, I'm looking at this as knowing where the needs might lie, even if we're not, if this is just a dream right now. So it is helpful, I guess, to know what they're thinking about what might come down later on, if not this year.
And I could have easily proposed a 15-20% increase. There were other positions that we didn't bring here tonight. Math, science, social studies. I could easily add an elementary teacher to every single grade. And I could make the case for it, but I know that the town doesn't have the funds to support it, so I proposed one.
But has the district gone to the town and has, like, what are the parameters you're working on? Is it a 0 increase this year? Is it, what's a realistic increase that the town's saying right now? What's the town manager coming back with?
We don't have any information at this point from the town in terms of what the forecast might be. We're beginning those meetings with the financial officers group, the town manager, the accountant, the treasurer, and assistant town manager and the assessor.
And when do they usually provide that information?
Usually it becomes clear when the governor releases House 1, because we can see what type of funding that we'll get from the state, and then they can match that against local revenues. They have revenue forecasts right now in Abington.
Very preliminary.
But that's not enough for us to go on.
And that number for the special education, that's a number that can fluctuate. Like, you could find that number going up to $600,000.
We've had years where it's gone up, where it's been a $600 item, $600,000 item, yep.
And is there any safety net for the budget when that happens? Like from the town?
There's the,
Cutting positions?
well, there's the there's not free cash, there's what's in stabilization. The town's, that's the taxpayer savings account.
also the state provides support in terms of if you have unforeseen expenses to like an inordinate degree, maybe you can make a claim through the state and it can offset about 75% that goes over foundation budget.
Extraordinary relief for circuit breaker. And
Yep.
we haven't had an experience with that yet where we've been able to trip that. There's been a couple of times where we've asked, have we tripped that wire that we can get that additional support previous years? We haven't in Abington, in my history in Abington, we haven't tripped it yet. It's when you trip that extraordinary relief bucket in terms of circuit breaker, it's because you could have an individual whose needs require a hospitalization, education to take place in a hospital setting that could cost $300,000. So if you had 2 of those children move into your district, you could have a $600,000 increase in your budget, you know, in 1 week. It happened in a system, one of our neighbors, 2 years ago. So you would want that child to get all of those services, and I'm proud to be in a country that provides that type of setting for our kids when they need it. My quarrel is with how we pay for it. I don't think it should be through the municipal process.
And just
No,
as far as the contractual obligations, is that, are we going into a contract year, or are we?
No, they were set, yeah, they settled last June, so 6 months ago.
So we know what that.
Correct, yeah, it's a locked number, yep.
All right.
Which helps.
Last year's budget had to factor in negotiation amounts, this year's doesn't, so. Anybody else? Okay, motions, right?
Yeah, please.
I'll be looking for a motion to submit for the annual town meeting warrant a proposed fiscal year 2020 budget figure of $24,373,279 as the amount requested for the school department's operating budget.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Did you want to have the 14 grand?
Sure.
8,000.
So the next item I'd like to ask you to consider is for the transportation cost required for our students who attend a Chapter 74 vocational school at Norfolk Aggie. We're required to pay for their transportation. I think you're probably aware that Felicia sets up a bus with surrounding communities, and this is our portion of that bus bill to so that they can go receive that education. Other districts ship the kids in by van, and it's inordinately expensive. This is actually traditionally been very low compared to what other districts are paying.
This is not part of the school department budget, per se? Like
No,
not
it's
part
done,
of-
it's done out of this
its own-
separate
Okay.
warrant.
Okay.
Make that motion.
Okay, motion to submit for the annual town meeting warrant proposed figure of $14,000 as the amount requested for student transportation services for students attending out-of-district voc schools as non-resident students for 1920. Jeanette, you said?
Yes, Jeanette made the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, last.
And then the next is if there are companies or convenience stores or stores in town that have to pay a fine because they sell to minors, that money is collected, those fines are placed in an account. And then we use that money in smoking cessation, vaping cessation, drug cessation programs, whether it's for a guest speaker or resources for the nurse's office or the health office, and that enablement is $8,000 annually. So that's that next recommended item for your consideration.
Can I just ask a question before we,
Mhm.
does that number ever change, increase or decrease historically?
The amount we haven't changed.
That's how much the account can hold.
So, but like from the, is that state?
No, so
It's fixed.
this is like how much that savings account can have, and it can only have up to $8,000.
No, I understand that. I'm wondering just who set, is this a state thing or federal thing? Because I'm wondering, historically, have they ever increased the amount that, for this type, like, the program's wonderful, but imagine, I'm sure they collect more than $8,000. And so I know there are people listening that have, it's always, from the time that it was initiated, it's always been.
I don't know that they collect more than $8,000
Okay.
in a given year.
Last year, we received about $100.
That's surprising.
It's fines in Abington
Yeah,
that are
it's,
given in
I
Abington.
am surprised
Yeah.
that it's not more, actually.
Yeah.
All right, good to know, thanks.
So I'll be looking for a motion to submit to the town meeting, the said account to be funded by the fines levied against Abington businesses which violate state or local tobacco control laws, to be expanded by the Abington School Department to fund substance abuse prevention programs not to exceed $8,000.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to roll call exit the public hearing, or?
No.
So moving on, we're going to now exit public hearing and kind of officially start our meeting. I'm going to
You
go,
want to take a motion to do it, not roll call, but just take a motion.
okay, a motion to exit the public hearing, thank you.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, no, I wasn't clear at first.
Just heading back, we skipped this at the beginning because of the town, because of the public hearing. Is anybody, hearing visitors, anybody like to speak on anything on our agenda? Okay, seeing none. Move on to,
Say one thing? Can I just ask a question?
sure,
When we do put it out, electronic copies out there?
yes.
This may seem like a small, insignificant thing, but can we get it so when you scroll through a document, you don't have to rotate the pages? It may seem like a small thing, but when you go through, it can get, we want to go paperless. We want to have the document that you can just scroll through and not have someone have to adjust it. I just ask anybody, go home, pull up the document, and see how frustrating.
We can try.
It's a small thing.
Like I PDF it. Is it like upside down? Is that what you mean?
No, it's on the side.
Oh.
It's a small thing, but when you're trying to go through something, you have to keep rotating the page.
Does it depend on the device? Because I looked on it and mine were all upright when I looked on when I scrolled
If
through
you go
them.
through all the pages, I've tried a couple of times, and it's always that way.
Has anyone else in the audience experienced that? I'm just curious if that happens more often than I didn't notice anything.
Me neither.
Okay.
No, I
never
don't go
noticed
on
either.
there, yeah. We'll take a look, though.
We'll take a look.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll ask Rich to help me with. I'll just send it.
All right, moving on to the reading and approval of minutes from our November 27th meeting. You want to take a look over the minutes and make a motion when you feel comfortable?
I can make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The report of subcommittee. So the first item we have is a negotiation subcommittee for Unit B, the educational support personnel. I sat in on this as the subcommittee member. We've come to a tentative agreement. We have the memorandum of agreement in the package for Unit B. The process began during the summer, continued, ended right around the November-December window. Felicia, I'm just going to defer to you for any, if you just want to hit on the highlights of it.
Sure. The overall cost of living increase for the Unit B is consistent with other communities within town. FY19, 2.5%, FY20, 2%, and FY21, 2.25%.
So I know it could probably feel like people need to know there were hours and hours and hours of work done on this behind the scenes. I want to thank Chris for sitting in with us with those negotiations.
I'll make the motion to approve the negotiated Unit B memo between the Abington School Committee and the Abington Education Association.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Felicia, you can tell them it's good to go. Next up, Business and Finance Subcommittee. As Peter mentioned, Lisa and I sat in during Christmas break to preliminary go over this budget. He went over it with us. We sat down, we asked questions regarding it, and this was the final version that came up tonight to present as a preliminary. We don't really have anything else since that was the big item anyway. Lisa, I don't know if you have anything to add on it, or if anybody has. I think most of the questions were probably asked. There'll be more for the subcommittee as we get going the next couple of months. So, third up is there's been discussion. There's been the want to establish a social emotional learning subcommittee. Jackie, Janelle, I'm going to defer to you. I know you both mentioned some stuff prior. Anything you want to add to it about the reasons behind it, what you see the best means of it?
I just think as a district, we need to be more proactive in the lives and the experience that children have and the burdens they shoulder before they even come in the door to learn academically. It's just, and I think a lot of students, we see it day in and day out, and I don't think the age necessarily denotes any factors. I think it presents itself in different manners, but that children these days are really struggling with that part of the world. And I think as a district, we should be doing something about it.
Yeah, and just to add to what Jan was saying, I think if you're in education, social emotional learning is a topic that we hear about all the time in our day-to-day. But I think if we could take like just a minute, I don't know that it might be nice to just break it down a little bit about where it lives in terms of curriculum. Even at the Department of Ed, when it outlines its guiding principles for each content area, within each content area, it names social emotional learning as a piece that we as a district need to consider. And just to clarify a little bit, because you hear the word social emotional all the time, it's really about how do we develop our students as people and the skills they need to have relationships with each other, how to empathize, how do they interact with each other, how do they problem solve, but then taking another whole look, which is that reflective piece of when we look at our classroom settings, do students feel socially and emotionally safe? And that's so different than just being physically safe in school. We have all types of protocols in place to keep students physically safe. But when we ask if they're socially and emotionally safe, we're thinking about how often do we seek ways to reduce incidents of anxiety for children? How often do we seek strategies within the classroom to avoid unnecessarily or unintentionally shaming or embarrassing a student by our response? And then just thinking about what do we already have in place that's working well for students in terms of social emotional learning, and then what areas can we improve upon? And then lastly, just shifting to a place where we as a subcommittee can look at how do we accommodate for social emotional learning? So in the way that we do for academics, for students who have learning needs, we put in place certain accommodations to make sure that they get what they need. And there are, just to give a specific example, sometimes students will misbehave in a classroom, and rather than a consequence given for that behavior, the lens of social emotional learning would ask us as a collective group to look at what was the catalyst for why the child acted that way, and what happened maybe before that. So instead of punishing or giving a consequence for the behavior, we seek to understand and help the child develop a toolkit that they'll be able to then turn around and use going forward to avoid those types of situations. So I just felt like it would be helpful to take just a quick second to back us up, because we hear about it all the time, but I think that for anyone who's listening that's not in it all, on a daily basis, it might be nice. No, thank you. Thank you both for bringing that up. Anybody else? Go ahead, yeah.
So as a system, we've done a beautiful job of developing this beautiful building. We have new grade configurations now. We have new transition places for students. And along that continuum, people are working very hard to meet their social emotional needs today. But how are we, as a system, strategically taking care of them as they move through our school system, so that when when they enter in pre-K, we're starting to build, and I see it happen in the Abington Public Schools at the early elementary level. It's not no, perhaps it's not now, because students have to learn to take their turn. And they need to develop that resiliency at the earliest elementary levels. And I'm using very simple examples to illustrate the point. Then, as you progress through the system, we get to a place where we have high school students that we want them to be successful, resilient individuals in our society that function at a high level. Well, how do we get from that pre-K experience to that high school graduate? And what are we doing to build that ramp, that continuum across our district, so that, especially grade to grade and in transition years, they don't feel it's a ramp, not a giant step up for them. We have internally a social-emotional group committee working, and I think what would be healthy for us is for the committee to have that subgroup, and then for us to have an internal group, and then for there to be some crossover between the group in terms of certain people participating on both. So I think that James and I and anyone else that would want to be involved with both groups, so that we can make sure there's a healthy crossover, because to have a vision about this, and what's saying, it's not my saying, but a vision without execution is hallucination. So we want to make sure that we execute the vision of this group, so we can make real differences.
When are you looking to have this group, this committee established?
Depending on who wants to participate and when you're available, we can begin right away.
I'm interested.
And who would be on it outside of the committee, outside of the school committee? Like, would you
Guess that
have
can be,
parents? Would you have teachers?
We can decide, I mean, we can,
All meetings are public.
I think the more stakeholders, the better, and
Right.
just if there are parents that are interested, or teachers even, I think it's helpful. I don't know, I mean, there'll be some crossover, but I think it's definitely important for us to hear from teachers that may not be
Me too.
involved in the school
Right.
based group that may want some involvement.
yeah.
And we could have standing members and then people that have an interest in one topic we're discussing come for that topic and then not participate after that, or we would hope they would stay.
And I think the lens would be through social emotional learning threaded through different areas, like homework, in classroom, just there's lots
Yeah.
of places where we can talk about.
I think it's wide,
this
wide
topic.
open, yeah. Tonight we'll focus on establishing, and then from there we'll take offline as far as people that are involved with it.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
So from here, we can only have 2 people?
Correct.
Right.
Maximum.
Okay.
So I'll look for a motion to establish a social-emotional learning subcommittee.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Oh.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then in terms of participation tonight, we know we have Jackie and
We're gonna
Okay.
we'll take that off, okay? Next up is the evaluation of the superintendent of schools. So in the agenda package, there was, so just to recap, he did his self-evaluation for all of us in the November meeting. So what you'll have is, that is part of the first package. In addition, our answers are also in here, but I also create a summary that's just easier for me to read and follow that I'm going to read off of tonight. I'm not going to read it all. You've heard me enough. So there's the 4 goals. I'll let you know what the total ratings were on each of them. I'll just read a handful of comments off of them. So let you know, this process took place after the November meeting. We all started working on our own evaluations of the superintendent throughout December. I received them, consolidated them, and what you see here is every comment that I received, including my own. Nothing was excluded. So every comment that I received, that any of us wrote, is part of this document, both documents, as well as the full ratings. Anybody have any questions before I start on it, or?
I just like the formatting. I like that
Okay.
you did that, included everybody's comments. Thank you.
No problem. So the first goal was a district improvement goal. Continue to transition and adjust pre-K to 12 to a new configuration that provides the best possible educational program for students. The ratings were 1 exemplary, 3 proficient, and 1 needing further action. Some of the comments: the full-day kindergarten implementation was very successful and appears to be going smoothly. Successful progress continues across the district and will always be an ongoing process. The new start and end times at our schools appear to be a better fit for families. And one that's come up quite a bit: the additional recess time and consistency of recess was much needed for our 5th to 6th grade students. Once ready, the grass fields will be an essential space for exercise and well-being for them. I don't know if anybody else has any comments on any of those. So on the second goal, district improvement goal as well: increase educator proficiency with technology-related instructional tools, assessments, and platforms from pre-K to 12. 100% of the faculty and staff will be engaged in professional development focused on best practice classroom use, assessments, and improving digital literacy throughout the year. The ratings were 1 exemplary, 3.5 proficient, and 1/2 of needing further action. Some of the comments: the addition of the new technology integrationalist is a vital component to our one-to-one initiative. We hope to be able to implement technology in areas of our district that can assist parents. This includes continuing to push staff to fully implement online staff pages and grading, as well as using technology in such things as elementary class assignments. As a district, we have yet to have 100% implementation of our current online system for grading. It seems premature to rate all of the items listed under goals as complete, as no concrete plan for actual implementation of the new system Canvas has been established. The addition of a technology integrationalist was critical. The knowledge and expertise of the TI will continuously allow our staff and students to thrive and grow. Something that was mentioned, has been mentioned. The focus of this was on good job with the technology being integrated, but continue to improve with the focus on the staff of the district. Goal 3, student learning goal: improve student achievement across all content areas, grade levels, and subgroups, and assessments developed locally and as measured by the MCAS test for students in the aggregate, 1% above the state median student growth percentile. Additionally, the Woodsdale Elementary School high-needs student group, which includes students with disabilities, English language learners, or low-income students, will demonstrate academic improvement on par with state indicators. There was 1 exemplary and 4 proficient. Some of the comments that I highlighted: learning walks are a wonderful addition towards the goal of accountability and raising student achievement as measured by state and local assessment data. It would be nice to see a continued push towards student engagement and student-centered instruction versus teacher-led, particularly at the middle school level. This goal will almost always be ongoing. While the MCAS results are going in the right direction, the focus needs to always be maintained. And professional development, curriculum improvements, as well as learning walks have all proven to be essential and beneficial components. And lastly, the 4th goal, professional practice goal: demonstrate improved district and school lines of communication of expectations, policies, protocols, successes, and challenges through measurable and reliable data sources. The ratings came in at 1 exemplary, 2.5 proficient, and 1/2 of needing further action.
It was 2 exemplary.
I'm sorry, 2 exemplary, 2.5 proficient, and 1/2 needing further action.
You trying to short me?
I think they're all blending together. Mr. Schaefer has shown many signs of making vast improvements in accountability and has been extremely effective in adapting to our expectations of him in our schools. Continue to communicate between administrators across buildings and to central office to create a shared vision and align expectations for how we treat members of our Abington school community, including staff, students, and families. Continue to seek and use feedback from multiple stakeholders to help us improve as a district. And the list of building visit dates provided to the committee prior to the start of the school year, coupled with the list of the administrators going on these learning walks, is a great way to open lines to the committee and between building administrators. That was what I had to hit on. Any feedback from anybody? Welcome, or any comments anybody wanted to add that I didn't hit on? Yes.
Can I
Yeah.
reiterate something I
Yeah.
said before? I didn't teach one lesson to make any of the successes here happen. It was a group of people that work hard and care deeply about kids in the Abington Public Schools. And so I appreciate the positive comments, and I also appreciate the feedback on areas to grow. Even those areas that we've made growth, we need to continue to be reflective and make ongoing improvements, and then especially focus on those areas that identified for growth. So I appreciate that feedback, and I look for more of it as I continue to develop goals for the coming school year, because these are my goals. They're the superintendent's goals, but they're really also the goals of the system, because what we do is we align everything in the system based off of these goals so that we can be focused and strategic about our work. So people will be building on the next set of goals that I generate. And so those are important to me to continue to get that feedback from you. So thank you for it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And next, report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance, Felicia.
Thank you. I have a couple of items for you tonight. The first one is there was a minimum wage increase that happened on January 1st, brought minimum wage to $12 an hour, and January 1st, 2020, there'll be an additional, another increase to $12.75. I have for you the hourly rates for hourly non-collective bargaining employees, where those rates have been adjusted to the minimum wage, and then if there are, for example, if there's 4 steps and the first step goes to minimum wage, the other steps were increased at the same rate as the increase of the minimum wage. So I also have, so for you, I have a request to vote the increase for the minimum wage, and then on July 1st, a 2% increase to those hourly rates, which is consistent with other collective bargaining units. And then there's also a reflective increase on January 1st, 2020 of the $12.75 minimum wage.
Okay.
Well, I think I'd be looking for a motion to approve the hourly rates for non-collective bargaining due to the minimum wage increase.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor of it?
Aye.
Aye. All set.
My second update is I begin with a thank you to the Abington Police Department and to members of the community who have who identified the school buses and the school bus safety around cars passing school buses when lights are on, and some pretty high-profile accidents that have happened around this country. And through conversations with the Abington Police Department for approximately 4 weeks, the end of November into December, they did a campaign, a safety campaign, in which they used a variety of methods, including unmarked police cars around buses, police SROs riding on the bus with another officer in a car, marked cars, and both morning and afternoon. And if they saw infractions around people passing school buses with their lights on, they pulled them over. And so during that campaign, they had 5 stops, 4 were in the morning. They said in the morning time that that was definitely a busier time, and a time that people, even if they didn't see the police, they wanted to beat the lights, but didn't or did. So they will continue to do that periodically throughout the year. But I think it was a benefit for them. People saw them around the buses. They also did an educational piece around the front of the building where signs are not to enter when buses are present, and when buses were present, lights were on and cars drove down. They also stopped those people and provided them an explanation of why they couldn't do that. So I'd like to thank the Abington Police Department, SROs, and Chief Majensky for their help with that.
To that point, I saw that it happened on my street with my kids' bus. The same thing. They were following them up and down. So I did see it in action.
Thank you. And my last is a school building update. Not sure how many more we're going to have of these on the agenda, but I do have a few updates for you. Over vacation week, we did have some kitchen tiles were replaced that were still under warranty that were identified as cracked, and the vendor came in and replaced those. There are also some hallway tiles that have been replaced. I've also reported previously on having some issues with the waste line coming out of the middle school area. And that was cameraed again over vacation weeks. There was a plug that had been rotor-rooted, but not, I won't go into great detail, but it wasn't totally cleared, and that was a source of what they believe to be one of the backups. The plumbing contractor, again, this is all under warranty. This is not, this is no cost to the district. They increased the flow rate in toilets that feed that in the hopes that the additional water and water pressure will move any waste down those waste lines without getting stopped. We have a plan to camera those lines again over February vacation to see if that remediation plan has worked. I will say that this is something that won't come off the table until we are 100% confident that the solution of the increased water flow will provide a remediation to that. So it's something that even if in February they look good and then we have a blockage in May, then that's still part of the initial construction issue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Felicia. New business, establishing next school committee date, Tuesday, January 22nd, so 2 weeks from tonight, at 7 p.m. here in the library. Just some dates to keep in mind. On your packet, it has tomorrow night as an Abington Education Foundation meeting. I sit in on those, and they're canceling that for the most part tomorrow. The board is just going to meet to go over some financial things, so the next meeting will end up being in February. So that will not happen tomorrow. On Wednesday, January 16th, the building committee meeting takes place here in the library at 6 p.m. Monday, January 21st, all school offices and buildings are closed in observance of Martin Luther King Day. As I mentioned, the next day, the 22nd, is our school committee meeting. And Friday, January 25th, is an in-service early release day for the district. Questions? I'll be, do you have anything? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Sure.
There was a lot provided as far as the superintendent's evaluation.
Yeah.
Is there a conclusion to it? Like, there's a lot of information there. I mean, I think Peter does a great job. I just don't see a conclusion in regards to Peter's.
We rate, the way we have it set up is we rated each goal. I mean, I could take it and say, okay, whatever the majority of the goal is, I'll rate that as the total. I choose to keep it all in there. We don't have like an overall summary at the end of it. That's not part of it. Something that could be maybe addressed in the future. Just the way it's set up, we rate each goal and provide any comments towards it. So, do you want? No. I mean, so if you were like, if you were going to look at evaluation, if you were going to look at one of, I mean, like the first one exemplary, 3 proficient, 1 needing further action. If I summarize, I'd say he was proficient in that goal, but we don't have an overall summary set up as it currently stands.
Well, I think every goal has a summary itself. I mean,
You're right.
1 exemplary, 3 proficient, and 1 needs further action. I think that's exactly, that tells the message.
Right. And I think we've all, at times, if we wanted to, sat down with Peter and told him how we felt about certain aspects of the evaluation, what we came up with. I know I have in the past, so.
And some of the comments are still broad, so that, that's where the conversations take place, that, for the person who wrote that comment, there may have been 3 to 5 to 12 conversations
Right.
related to that topic on what, for clarification purposes for him, on what does that, he needs more specific feedback on what does that look like, or what does that comment mean, maybe.
Right, there's almost 30 pages, and I think it's great having all the comments in there for transparency. But at the end of the day, about Peter sitting there saying, so what exactly does all this mean? It's like, is the committee supportive of me? I mean, I think Peter does a very good job. Again, I'm glad we have him as a superintendent. But it's just the idea of just the school committee taking that last step to say, listen, we're going to summarize this.
Well, I think our evaluation is 4 pages. I mean, Peter's, evaluation of himself, which, correct me if I'm wrong, follow the teachers. We set that up years ago.
A lot of,
I mean, similar.
Yeah, it's changed from what the teachers are doing because it's so, I tried to, for every goal, I have an action step, and for every action step, I felt like I owed the committee information on each thing. And then they gave comments on that, and then at the mid-year, and then I felt like I owed more comments on the mid-year. So that's why mine's 15 pages. I mean, it's like a,
But that one that's online included the
Yeah.
mid-year, like the
Right.
one that's on there included the goals,
Everything.
the
Right.
strategies, and then the mid-year, and then the end of the year. So it's like, it is lengthy, there's a lot
the
of.
evidence, I think it's great. Like, it is long, but I think as we had to make our decisions on how to rate each goal, it was really helpful to have specific and really detailed evidence, that would help us make those decisions.
But yeah, I mean, I know, like, on my job, I get like at the end, we don't have that current structure set up, no, so. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Motion to adjourn.
Already made.
Seconded? Seconded? All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
She wants to talk to me.
Just doesn't be on camera, but I just wanted to thank
Really turn
everybody
looking
for their
for
support for me.
how'd it go?